create trash, terrible art, even if you think it's like the worst thing ever, and you look at it as poop or garbage, because it's still art, and they say art is subjective, and beauty is subjective. But if you create something trash, even if you weren't even trying to make something beautiful, which I do recommend trying to make trash art as beautiful as you can, which is part of beautifying, but creating something trash just so you can exercise and express your creativity and your emotions. And so what do I kind of mean by this, right? I feel like with creating art that we might have this idea of perfectionism, and we might actually be strangled, like have strangulation because of perfectionism, and that keeps us delayed or keeps us in procrastination or just keeps us stagnant and not creating art and not creating anything because we might be too much stuck in my head or overthinking too much. And I kind of get this inspiration from watching this video of I can't remember his name, but he was a very inspirational. It's a very inspirational and motivating video, but he was talking about create art and just don't think about it too much, plan a little, but just create the art and put it out there. And a song, or whether it's music or whatever it is, a video or a painting, you might think it might be terrible, you might think it might be trash, but that might be someone's favorite art or someone's favorite song or someone's favorite painting. And so, or favorite YouTube video, because I see YouTube videos as art too. But allow yourself to create trash, create garbage or terrible art, and remove the idea that everything that you create has to be perfect, because nobody's perfect except for Jesus. Nobody is perfect, okay? And so you can't put that heavy expectation on yourself to be able to create everything perfect, and everything that you create must be perfect, because it's unrealistic almost, because being human is being imperfect and making mistakes. It's part of being human, okay? And yeah, we should try our best to perfect our art and make our art better and try to make it as beautiful as possible. But I don't recommend stressing and panicking and obsessing over having it to be an exact way or certain way or perfect. And so it's just letting go of that idea of perfection and just allowing yourself to be creatively free to create whatever you want, even if it's garbage or trash. And granted, you might think it's garbage or trash, but to someone else, they might see it as the most beautiful art they've ever seen, or their favorite song, or what, like I said before. So just because you might have a nasty opinion on something that you create does not mean that someone else will have that same nasty opinion, and they might actually have a very loving opinion, and they might appreciate it more than you can. And it's just about allowing yourself to do and take action and create art, even if you think it's terrible, or if you think it's trash, and just putting it out there for people to see, for people to have their own opinions on, and just get better at creating art, because creating art and allow yourself to do it every single day, even if you think it's trash, will help you get better at creating art, help you exercise and stretch out your creative abilities, and help you express your emotions and have an emotional outlet on top of having a creative outlet. So, I talked about how journaling and just venting out our emotions and releasing our uncomfortable emotions and trauma that we go through, and loneliness and boredom and all of these uncomfortable emotions that we go through, we can release that through art. And it can help us satisfy our loneliness and our boredom and help us handle our trauma a lot more by releasing it and letting it out. And so it's expressing our emotions over suppressing our emotions. And so I recommend creating art even when you're homeless, because I was making videos when I was homeless living in a tent. Now, I don't know if I was doing it every day, but I was still, I actually think I have a video saved in my phone talking about, I was cursing in that video, and it's an old video, but in that video I was talking about expressing your emotions over suppressing them, because once you express your emotions, you don't have the desire to suppress them anymore. And so it's just about, like that balloon, and deflating that balloon. It's just like having a balloon of emotions and deflating that balloon so that that balloon does not pop into an emotional breakdown or a lash out or a crash out or some kind of meltdown, and you end up hurting some people that you don't want to hurt, and causing a scene, or whatever. You would want to avoid that. And so releasing your emotion and expressing your emotions helps you not bottle up your emotions and have that balloon inflating and potentially pop on someone else. But yeah, even when you're homeless, and I would say prioritize creating art over your survival needs. Because when you create art, because when you release those uncomfortable emotions, especially when you're homeless and you talk about your problems of that you handle when you're homeless, which a lot of people do, they make videos. A lot of homeless people make videos and they post on YouTube just venting out their problems. But you doing that, yes, it's creating art, and yes, it's venting out your emotions. It helps you release those uncomfortable emotions and allows you to have an emotional outlet and a creative outlet, and it will help you feel better and help you have a more fresh mind and more clarity and more focus to be able to take care of your survival problems and put you in a better mood to be able to take care of it and handle your survival needs. So yes, I think creating art should be more of a priority than taking care of your survival needs. And so, because by creating art and releasing our uncomfortable emotions and venting out what survival feels like, it can put us in a better mood, in a better state, and help us feel better overall, and allow us to come at our survival needs and come at our survival problems with a more fresh mind and more fresh being and a better mood. I also recommend, if you are in a survival situation and you are struggling with survival needs or any kind of survival problems, I recommend praying to Jesus and asking Him for help to help you with your survival needs and for finding shelter and for finding food. I highly recommend praying to Him for help, because with God all things are possible. And so, yes, I do think it's still important to take care of your survival needs, to eat food and to find shelter, but I would recommend prioritizing creating art over taking care of your survival needs, because by creating art, it will help you feel better and be in a better mood and have a fresher mind and a fresher being to be able to handle your survival needs and handle your survival problems a lot better. So yeah, I recommend prioritizing creating art over taking care of your survival needs. And creating art, even if you think it's trash, and allow yourself to create trash art and terrible art, because it will make you a better artist and help you get better at exercising and practicing and stretching out your creative abilities, but also help you release uncomfortable emotions. And if you're someone that you're trying to become a better speaker, or if you're trying to become a better songwriter or a better musician, instrument player, playing terrible songs or playing music that you think is terrible, yeah, you might think it's terrible, but it will help you get better at that instrument or at speaking. If I make a video that I think is terrible or trash, that video still helped me get better at creating and better at speaking. So by creating trash art, it still helps you become a better artist or a better speaker or a better musician or whatever art that you love to create. It will still help you become better, and it will allow you to be more confident in creating your art too. And you won't have mental blocks like perfectionism or being scared of being made fun of or embarrassed or creating something terrible that some people might not like. Overcoming those fears and just creating what you love to create and just expressing yourself how you are and how you feel. Just expressing yourself and allow yourself to be yourself and fully be yourself on camera and with your art will help you feel a lot better than just doing nothing and not allowing yourself to create art because you think you have a trash idea or you think you're going to create something trash. Because me personally, I feel terrible when I go a few days without creating a video or creating anything. And I'm like, man, I wish I just created a video even if it was just me just talking about my day. Because I could at least say I created something and I could feel better about creating something. And I talk about, trying to overcome my lust addiction. And I see as creating art every single day, even if it's trash art, as a beautifully good distraction to keep me from thinking about lust and keep me from thinking about gluttony and keep me from thinking about being a sloth. Because guess what? Creating art is the opposite of laziness. Because you're doing something. It's productive, whether you're releasing uncomfortable emotions or, just exercising your creative abilities and having a creative outlet, an emotional outlet. You're still being productive. And you're still creating something. You're still doing something. So that is not laziness. So creating art is a beautifully good distraction from lust, gluttony, and sloth. So creating art every single day, even if it's trash, and prioritizing creating art over our survival needs, I highly recommend. And I'm going to post that video that I made when I was homeless, talking about expressing our emotions over suppressing, too, so that you guys have a better idea. And I highly recommend watching that video too, so you can kind of see from the perspective of me when I was homeless and still creating videos. And people do it on YouTube all the time, creating videos homeless. And you can write journal entries homeless. And there's a lot of people that create art homeless. And homeless people with their guitar. So I highly recommend creating art where you're homeless, because it's an emotional outlet and a creative outlet that helps you release your uncomfortable emotions. But also you can use it to make money. Now I don't recommend selling your art for money, because I see that as selling your personality for money, and you don't want money to be your sole motivation for creating art. You want to create art for yourself and for love and for God, more than doing it for money. But people have free will; they can do what they want, and it is possible, and there is potential to make money from just creating art and just being yourself and expressing yourself. Yeah, you can do it to satisfy your loneliness, to satisfy your boredom, and satisfy your curiosity, and to have an outlet for your uncomfortable emotions and all your emotions, and a creative outlet as well. But you can also do it for money. Now I wouldn't recommend doing it for money and trying to find another way, like serving the needs of people, to make money, so that way you don't have to create your art just for money, and so money don't have a control over your art, and you could just create art out of love and for yourself and for God. I highly recommend not creating art for money, because it's fake art and it's kind of a cash grab. But if you have the potential to make money off of art, and you can, people have free will and they can do what they want, but I wouldn't recommend it. Now if it happens and you become someone like Justin Bieber or Elvis Presley, and your art blows up and you become rich, and it happens and you do end up making money off your art, that's a possibility. But I wouldn't recommend having that to be your sole motivation of getting rich and famous, of being an artist. But the motivation to create art and to be an artist, to come from inside, come from a way to satisfy your loneliness, your boredom, and your curiosity, and a way for you to release uncomfortable emotions and all emotions, and a way for you to have a creative outlet, and also to create art for God. And so that's what I recommend over creating art for money and fame. And that's pretty much it for the video. So create art even if you think it's trash, and forget the idea of perfectionism, and don't let it strangle you. And try your best to make your art as beautifully good as possible. And I also want to share this quote from a TV show that I highly enjoyed, about a actor with superpowers, and he's trying his best to hide his superpowers from the government, but he's trying to play a superhero in a movie, and he has dreams of being an actor. He's trying to hide his superpower and really just trying to focus on being an actor. And so he gets mentored by someone who played a terrorist that was trying to terrorize the world in one of the Iron Man movies. He was like a very famous actor, but kind of like a rogue actor, not the typical Hollywood, but he does have Hollywood experience. But the guy that played a made-up terrorist on the internet in one of the Iron Man movies, he is training Wonder Man, or Simon, to be an actor and how to be Wonder Man. And so he's trying to prepare him for the part. And as he's trying to prepare him and train him, he tells him this quote about acting. When we share our pain, our grief, our joy, the audience feels less alone in theirs. We're all less alone. And that was by Trevor Slattery from Wonder Man. And like I said, that show is very meta in terms of you have a superhero hero trying to hide his superpowers, trying to be an actor to play the part of a superhero, and learn how to get better, get ready for that part, better at being an actor, and get better at hiding his superpower. And so I think it's interesting having a character that has superpowers and he is a superhero, but he's trying his best to hide his power and trying his best to play a part of being a superhero, so playing a superhero. And I think it's very meta and self-aware. And so I highly recommend watching that show because I think it's interesting and trippy. I also want to talk about an argument that I came across when I was young. I can't remember what the video was about, but I think it was a debate between evolution and creation. And in the debates, and one of the arguments in the debates, this guy was talking about, imagine, and this is an argument that helped me come closer to believing in God and accepting that God is real. And first of all, Jesus is God and he is the only God. And I had complicated my beliefs in the past, but from going from a complete atheist and believing in nothing, this argument helped open my mind and heart to believing that God is real. And so this argument goes like this, if I remember correctly. Imagine you've never seen a human paint a painting before. You've never seen how a painting is created. And you don't know how a painting is created. But you walk into a forest, okay? And you kind of get lost and stranded in the forest, and you go deep in this forest, okay? And you see a beautifully good painting in the middle of this forest. And it's the most beautiful, good painting that you've ever seen in your life, okay? But you've never seen a human paint the paintings. Now you've heard of them, but you've never seen an actual human paint a painting. And when you come across this beautifully good painting, you see no footprints and no proof of a human being there. You see no paintbrush. You see no reason, no clues, no hints, no proof of a human coming and painting this painting and leaving it there, okay? But in your mind and in your heart, would you believe that this painting naturally came about through, the winds and, the trees falling and, the animals running around? Would you just say it's an accident that just happened, this beautifully good painting that just accidentally came about? Would you say that? Even though you've never seen a human paint a painting, and there's no proof that a human painted this painting, and there's no proof that a human was there to leave the painting, no footsteps, no paintbrush, no hints, no clues, okay? No proof. Would you say this beautifully good painting accidentally came about, or would you say a human created it? Okay? But like I said, in this example, and imagining this example in this scenario, you've never seen a human paint a painting before, okay? And you come across this beautifully good painting. Are you going to believe that it accidentally came about? Even though you've never seen a human paint a painting before, and you see no proof of a human leaving this painting here, or no proof that a human created this, would you believe that this painting accidentally came about, or a human created this? A human with intelligence created this painting. Okay? And so that argument helped me come closer to believing that God is real. Because I don't think a beautifully good painting happens on accident.